I'm going to begin by mixing myself a pale, weak burnt umber. And I'm going to use this to plan out my painting on the watercolour paper. So I've mixed that up using the small flat. I'm now going to pick myself a rigger to do the drawing with. As before, I'm going to start with the two standing stones. Now, unlike the sketches, it's not important at this point for me to draw every tiny detail. What I'm doing is I'm positioning things on the paper, sorting out the size and position, because it is only going to be a guide. So I'm going to begin now by applying my first wet in wet wash. I'm going to begin by using the larger of the two flat wash brushes just to dampen the paper. And I'm going to bring this right the way down over where the distant hills are going to be, and also over where Hen Cloud is, but very carefully work my way around the stone wall and the two standing stones. In fact, I'm going to bring it right over where the roaches are, just there. And when you're doing this, just make sure you give it a really thorough wetting. I'm going to take my other wash brush and mix up some cadmium yellow. And I'm going to apply this to this area here, because this is where I want to suggest the sun is. Now, I'm not going to leave the sun as a solid orb, if you like. I want it to appear a little bit hazy. I want to use the haziness to help create that illusion of depth, and we can use a little bit of aerial perspective to do that. I'll bring that right the way down over the distant hills. There. Now it is drying off quite quickly, so I'm going to have to work quickly. A little bit of cadmium red here. When you're mixing paint like this, make sure you give it a thorough mixing so you don't get little bits of pigment in there, because it'll play havoc with your wash. It's also important to be working at a bit of an angle. There aren't many certainties in watercolour, but if you're working at an angle, you know which way the paint is going to flow. Finally, a little bit of French ultramarine in there, just to complete the wash. You do need to work quickly when you're producing a wash like this. The minute it starts drying, you'll start getting hard edges, and we don't want that. I think that'll do me. Now that wash is on the way to being dry. It's not completely dry yet, and I'm going to resist the temptation to work on the background and switch my attention to the foreground. And I'm going to mix myself up some stone colour and start painting the stones. I'm going to use some French ultramarine and apply a little bit of burnt umber to it. I'm now applying it to the stones. I'm going to start over here on the stone wall. What I am doing, in fact, is just leaving a bit of a highlight along the top edges. They're not going to stay white, but for now they need to be kept as highlights. And I've got some long grass here, so I'm just painting into the long grass. Now this is called negative painting, because you're painting around the object as opposed to painting the object itself. Now I'm using my original planned out drawing that I drew out in burnt umber. I'm using that as a guide. But you shouldn't feel that you have to stick exactly to the lines. If, as you're painting them, you feel you can improve it or alter it slightly, always feel free to do so. It's one of the reasons I like using paint to draw it out as opposed to pencil, because it can be a little bit inhibiting. It's purely psychological, of course. in a way, once you start working with the brush, it starts taking on a life of its own, and I always say the decisions that you make should be according to what's right for the painting and not how accurate it is. Accuracy, of course, is important, but in comparison. Right, moving on from that, that's obviously still damp. I'm going to mix up a little bit more French ultramarine. Tiny bit of burnt umber, so it's a blue-grey, and this is even lighter than the colour I've just used on the rocks there. I'm going to apply this. To the edge of Hen Cloud there. Just taking care there to make sure that I leave a highlight around the top edge of this rock here. While I'm at it, of course, I might as well use the same colour for these trees here. If you've got colour on your brush and you're applying it to the painting, very often you can use it again and again in different parts of the painting, and it helps to bring it together a little bit, make it a little bit more harmonious. That's good. I'm now going to leave that to dry thoroughly.